Heading into the finals, the Warriors are coming off a week of rest, and the Celtics are coming off a long series with Miami. However, this season, the Warriors' main offensive juggernaut in Steph Curry and Klay Thompson has been relatively inconsistent. The Celtics, on the other hand, are establishing themselves as a defensive unit this postseason, with Marcus Smart being the 2022 Defensive Player of the Year. The odds favor the Warriors, but it's closer than people think. Coming out of the West is a feat the Warriors have accomplished for the 6th time in 8 years. LeBron and the Warriors have made getting to the finals look easy, to the point where 10 out of the last 12 finals have either featured LeBron or the Warriors. So to start off, we must acknowledge how impressive being in the finals right after the return of Klay Thompson is for the Warriors. But this postseason, there are underlying issues with the Warriors that have become evident. First off, although winning in 5 against the Denver Nuggets, when you look at each game you will see that this series was closer than it should have been. Denver for the past few seasons has been dealing with brutal injuries. Although winning the last 2 MVPs, Jokic is pretty much on his own. This team shouldn't have even had the chance, and for the first 2 games that seemed to be the tone set for the rest of the series. However, the next 3 games came down to the wire. When looking at a play-by-play view of each game, it's clear that the Warriors are better at closing the games, but only by a little bit. They couldn't stop the Nuggets bigs from getting to the rim. This is a problem this roster has due to the lack of James Wiseman. Players like Kevin Looney are playing outside of their style when attempting to accommodate for this lack of interior protection. This is going to be a migraine for them when matching up against a larger and more physical Boston squad in the finals. Questions like, how will you stop Al Horford from being effective in the post when he's shooting 70% on all field goals close to the rim? Or, how will you stop Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown offensively when you lack quality defensive players that could even try at that task? And finally, how will you get the shots you're used to seeing late in the 4th against a more physical and defensive squad? Marcus Smart may not lock Curry up, but to a significant extent, he will hinder his impact offensively. For the past 5 seasons, Curry has shot 33% when guarded by Marcus Smart. Although I would argue that this stat could be misleading given that the sample size is 27 field goals, which is not nearly enough to indicate a clear trend, but it does indicate a possibility that in this year's finals Curry could be limited offensively. With Curry being limited, the offense would have to rely on Klay Thompson or Jordan Poole, both who are viable options. However, you have to acknowledge 2 things. The first being this is Thompson's first NBA playoffs in years, but to his credit, he is showing signs of his older self. Then with Jordan Poole, as amazing as he's been playing this postseason, he's too young to know what you'll get out of him in the finals. Keep in mind, these 2 players are playing their roles perfectly at the moment, but if Marcus Smart really does have the power to contain Curry to a significant extent, then their roles will be altered and down the stretch it will rely on them stepping up in Curry's place. Another major factor that benefits the Warriors more than one would think is the week of rest they've received because of how short their conference finals with Dallas was, and how long Boston's conference final with Miami was. Rest is a crucial factor when considering how much of a difference it can make. Kawhi is a good example of that. During the regular season, he's known to practice load management in order to rest his body so that he can elevate his game during the postseason. With the rest the Warriors have received, their play can be elevated, and this especially helps considering Boston has played back-to-back Game 7s heading into the finals. Boston this postseason has played at an amazing level. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are in their prime as a duo. I'm excited to watch them play in their finals for the first time, and I truly believe they're just getting started. Regardless of the outcome of the finals, the future looks bright for Boston. In this series, however, there's 2 major concerns. First off, can Boston play at the same level they have all season, given the brutal route to the finals they've taken? And can they really stop Curry? As I mentioned previously, Boston is heading into this finals after taking a grueling route out of the East, as well as only 3 days of rest. When looking at their first round matchup against the Brooklyn Nets, despite sweeping them, it was a close game down every stretch. The Celtics really had to up their defensive efforts, and it was really a team effort stopping Kevin Durant. In 38 possessions, he was held to a puny 4 points, thanks to a conscious defensive effort that inadvertently took a lot out of Boston. Then looking at their second round matchup with the Bucks, it was a similar story, except lasting a long, brutal 7 games. Trying to limit Giannis will take a whole team to stop, and even at that, it would be difficult. It was a physically daunting task that the Celtics had guarding Giannis, especially considering his physical style of play. Scratching their way out of the East, You can argue that it took them 7 games to beat Miami only because of how draining the Bucks series was. Needless to say, the 3-day break Boston received after that brutal playoff run out of the East will more than likely be a factor in this year's finals. Their second biggest concern is how will they stop Curry? LeBron said it best, you don't stop Curry. He will fumble the ball 1 possession, then in the very next drain a half-court heave over 3 defenders. It's just the player he is, and it attests to his greatness at this point in his career. However, in 20 possessions across the past 5 years, Marcus Smart has held him to only 9 made shots. Again, as I mentioned earlier, a flaw with that argument is that sample size isn't large enough. However, when looking at the Celtics' options, Marcus Smart is the best shot they got. But even at that, it will be a conscious team effort to stop Curry, similar to KD, Giannis, and Jimmy Butler. And out of those 3, they only really stopped KD. Giannis and Jimmy Butler had spectacular performances against Boston, which could be a telltale sign that Curry made too. Boston has the ability to switch on every on-ball screen because of players like Al Horford would be switched on to Curry and could stall the possession out. But the problem is the Warriors run so many screens that eventually they'll get the matchup they want. On top of that, the Celtics also have to worry about Curry's off-ball movement. With or without the ball, Curry is always generating offense either by using off-ball screens to get an open shot or setting on-ball screens. It's why Curry gets so many good looks every game, but Marcus Smart is known for his drive and hustle. There will definitely be a limited amount of open shots that Curry gets because Marcus Smart will be there with him every step of the way. Overall, Boston is definitely at a disadvantage. They're more exhausted as a team, and the Warriors have had a week of rest. They'll need to figure out a way to stop Curry and also maintain the level of play that has made them so successful this postseason. However, the Warriors definitely have flaws, especially considering that this is the best team they faced throughout the playoffs, not like those horrible Cavalier rosters we've seen them be so dominant against in the finals. Additionally, the Warriors have been inconsistent defensively and they lack the interior presence needed to hinder Boston's offense. Regardless, I have the Warriors winning in 6. Boston is a young team still, and they won't go down without a fight. I doubt they can be productive given how tired they'll surely be at that point, so it's unlikely that we'll see Boston win a ring this year. But hey, that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe.
Look to the sky and you will feel